Junker Queen is one of the new tanks in Overwatch 2, and seeing as she has a great personality, she's a character that a lot of people want to play. But because of her high skill ceiling, a lot of people drop her before getting good with her. I'm Mr. Pugly, and today I want to talk about tips and tricks that you can use to better advance your plays with Junker Queen. Now, I did originally make a video on Junker Queen that kind of goes over the basics and some other tips and tricks that you can use with Junker Queen. So if you haven't seen that video, click on the top right now. And for the remainder of this video, I will assume that you already know Junker Queen's kit because I did discuss her previously on another video. Let's first start off with some problems that most players make when playing Junker Queen. Her kit really encourages the players to go into the front line and deal lots of damage. And in theory, that's kind of what you want to do with Junker Queen. But a big problem is overextending. A lot of Junker Queen mains overextend way too much. It has this great ability which allows you to get temporary HP as well as a nice speed boost for your team, and a lot of players like to use this as a starter. Now, there's no problem using it as a starter because you can allow your team to get a huge edge over the enemy team if you do it, but you kind of don't want to use it like that. And what people often do is use it immediately, rush into the front line and die because your team isn't prepared for you to essentially do a 1v5. So you kind of want to be mid-range with Junker Queen. You want to be up close and personal, but not right in their faces, because otherwise the entire enemy team will focus you and kill you instantly. Another problem that a lot of Junker Queen mains do is assuming that their shotgun is only super close range. Now, a nice thing about the medium range playstyle that you kind of want to do that I was alluding to with my first tip is that her shotgun actually does almost the full amount of her damage by shooting mid-range to the enemy. You don't need to be up close and personal 100% to deal the bulk of your damage. So because of this, a good tip with Junker Queen is that you can play up close and personal but far away enough to where your healers can actually manage and heal you and your team and still poke your enemies. So make sure to always constantly be firing at the enemies. Of course, that's kind of a given, but the main tip is to use it as a poking tool, and if you see a potential kill, that's when you want to start going in. Junker Queen is a combo-oriented character, so you do want to use your pull as much as possible to allow you to get potential eliminations. This is why you want to stay at mid-range, because if you're trying to do a long-range pull with your knife, most of the time the enemy will dodge out of the way because it doesn't travel too fast. You always want to emphasize this mid-range play style and kind of be up in their face but not overextending, and that's kind of the weird dance you have to do with Junker Queen that causes a lot of people to die. She doesn't have a ton of HP. She kind of almost plays like a DPS that kind of wants to be a flanker, and she's in a weird place in the meta. I will tell you right now, Junker Queen is considered one of the worst tanks in the entire game, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't play her. She does great on linear maps, so if there is a map where you notice a lot of verticality, that means the enemy team is able to get on ledges and shoot you from afar. You want to switch off of Junker Queen. You got to recognize when you want to switch off your heroes. That's a big thing in Overwatch. You got to recognize when you got to switch. So Junker Queen is no stranger to that. If the entire enemy team is all about poking you and you can't go in, it's okay to switch. Earlier I mentioned you want to combo a lot with Junker Queen. Of course, a great combo starter is getting the knife into the enemies. So when you're mid-range, you can easily get a knife into the enemy, and that does a staggering 95 damage after the wound damage. So impact damage is 80 damage. That's a lot of damage to do suddenly. And then when you pull them in, you can get a nice fire on your shotgun and potentially kill them with a headshot or do a body shot and then melee. That will oftentimes kill a average 200 HP hero, or you can even combo it with your axe, but I personally don't do that too often, albeit it's a great combo. I feel like most of the time you kind of want to use your axe to swing into a group of enemies or as a combo starter to start racking up the damage, because if you're suddenly taking 130 HP from one ability on a average 200 HP hero, they're gonna panic. So you want to get in their back line whenever you see an opening and just go for supports. One of my favorite heroes to tackle when playing Junker Queen is Mercy. If there's a Mercy on the enemy team, you can kind of just be free to kill her whenever you want. Use your Adrenaline Rush to go in there when you see an opening and swing at Mercy and then just shoot them as much as possible and they're down. Now, Junker Queen does a great job at also being a hero that 1v1s very well. So if you see a straggler on the enemy team, you can engage them and kill them 90% of the time. Or even if someone's diving you, you can engage them and kill them 90% of the time without any help. If you don't believe me, go into a death match, play Junker Queen. You'll notice how powerful she is on 1v1. She's amazing at it. One key thing I see a lot of players struggle when playing Junker Queen is using the map to your advantage. The easiest example of this is if you're playing attack on a payload, you can actually hide behind the payload because you don't have a ton of HP and you have to be cautious when you approach the enemy. because you have to play that mid-range style to really utilize all her skills. Using the environment to your advantage allows you to avoid a lot of unnecessary damage and then go after a hero that overextends and you can punish them very easily. My favorite thing, as I alluded to before, is hiding behind a payload whenever I need a few moments to just not take any damage, and then rushing at the enemy team by encouraging my team to rush in there with me by using the adrenaline rush ability, and then oftentimes it leads to a few eliminations, which allows you to capture the point easier, obviously. Now, because your knife is a really short cooldown, you want to use this as much as possible. Because you're going to be in this mid-range playstyle, make sure to use your knife to potentially get a hero out of place and pulled in front of you, which allows you to get eliminations, especially if your team is supporting you along the way. You can easily kill a lot of heroes. One of the best things you can do as Junker Queen is to try to get eliminations on squishy. So if you see any squishy heroes that cannot escape, try to go for them and you will make their day a very bad one, I will tell you that. Key things to note with Adrenaline Rush, which I kind of discussed a little bit here, but I'll put it into a list here, is to use it to allow your team escape if needed. It gives you a nice speed boost to your allies as well as HP. If you feel like your allies are going to die, you can use this as a nice way to peel off the enemy, as well as using it as a tool to go into the enemy team and pick off eliminations. So if you see an opportunity, the enemy team's kind of weak, you can use the Adrenaline Rush. Your team's going to be buffed up a little bit more. They're going to have over HP, which means your healers can kind of focus on healing their main HP, because every little bit of damage is going to go to the over health instead of their regular HP, allowing your healers to have a little bit of breathing room, as well as having your DPS a nice advantage to rush in there to get a kill, which is awesome. So use this as a tool to make your team survive as well as get eliminations and be opportunistic. It has a long cooldown, so you want to use it sparingly and effectively. Oh, and don't be afraid to use Adrenaline Rush to rush out the spawn point. Most of the time when I use it in spawn, I have it back right before I go into a team fight, so you can kind of use that as a way to get to the team fight quicker if you so need it. And then finally, let's talk about her ultimate. Now, her ultimate is a great tool. It applies anti-heal, put anti-heals on the healers of the enemy team or even key squishy targets that are harassing your team, and really deal lots and lots of damage to them without them being able to recover, unless they of course have a Kiriko. One of my favorite things to do with the Rampage ultimate is doing it when the enemy team is already staggering. So if you kind of use it at the start of a team fight, at the very beginning, you're going to rush in there, be behind the entire enemy, and the entire enemies are going to focus you and you're probably going to die. You kind of want to do this when the enemy team is already retreating a little, capitalize on killing all your enemies, because even if you're behind them, you're probably going to get some eliminations. So if they're dead, they can't deal damage to you. You don't really have to worry about them all targeting you. Another way to not worry about them all targeting you is flanking with your ultimate. So if you go behind the enemy team, then use your ultimate, you'll go right towards your team. You'll be in proper position to get heals from your healer, as well as getting a nice anti-heal on the entire enemy team. So use this as a way to get back to your team if you're flanking with Junker Queen. Junker Queen does great with flanking, so if you ever need to flank to get a squishy, like I said before, most certainly do it so you get an elimination. So key takeaway of this, don't be up close personal and don't be too far away. You want to always be mid-range with the enemy team. Your kit allows you to pull them close to you, as well as your primary fire allows you to get a decent amount of chunk of damage from the enemy team by being mid-range, because of it's a nice narrow spread. Get easy picks on squishies, as well as using Carnage as a way to deal a sudden burst of damage to squishy heroes, allowing you to get valuable picks. She is a very hard hero to play, so if you feel like you're not playing her well at all, it's okay to take a step back, re-examine how you're playing, and keep trying. Very different than any other hero in the entire game, so be patient with her and you will succeed eventually. And as always, a big shout out to the members who make these videos possible. We got Clairvoyance, Rick Iglesias, Cameron, and Wishkeeper. These are the people who support me as little as $5 a month, and you can also support me as little as $5 a month by clicking the link in the comment description or on the top right to become a member. The more members we have, the closer I get to becoming full-time, which of course means more videos for you guys. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him up with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. War in a cave with a torch on the wall, then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.